I understand that Josh is a dynamic and devastating runner. And that's why every go-to stat is total touchdowns, because they use him as their goal line back. And because of that, those numbers are juiced a bit. I think that's undeniable.
It's not easy to score a running touchdown.
I'm not
it's
saying
not easy to score in the red zone.
I agree. I think
so you can't just.
I'm not saying it's
act
not
like
useful.
they're irrelevant.
I'm not acting like they're irrelevant. I think that they are. I don't look at a quarterback's rushing touchdowns as inherently valuable as their passing touchdowns, unless they came from outside of the 2-yard line. If you have a 12, you're the first and goal, or first and 10 from the 16,
Why?
and because typically
you're not guaranteed to score because you're inside the 2-yard line.
I understand that, but typically your passing touchdowns are coming from outside the 5, and typically your rushing touchdowns aren't. So that's all it is. I'm not saying they have no value. I'm just saying I don't count them of equal value. Yeah. But the other problem that
That's insane. The Bills have no consistent run game. The fact that they have to rely on Josh Allen to get that job done just shows that Josh Allen has more on his plate. Like, what are you talking about? The reason why you don't count it is because it takes away from Josh Allen. That's why you don't want to count it. And it takes away from, and because it makes Patrick Mahomes look not as impressive technically in that regard. That's why it's inconvenient to your argument of Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen. That's why you don't count it. It makes no sense. If you really want to talk about also touchdowns within the 20, 15, 10 are a lot more play design than brilliant quarterback play. So it's just, we can swing this argument however we want to do it. So it's such a disingenuous comment to be like, I think it's less impressive. It's less impressive because it helps Patrick Mahomes and hurts Josh Allen. That's why you think it's more impressive or less impressive.
I have, Brew, is everyone acknowledges the Bills turned their season around when. What was the change? What did they start doing?
Running the ball.
But he was still throwing it like 30-plus times.
Well, Brew, was he? Because here's the
and when they went 5-0,
here's the numbers.
This is gonna drive me crazy.
Here's the numbers. That's what he was doing.
Okay.
That's what it was. 1 touchdown a game.
Oh, yeah, but I'm talking about attempts.
Okay, well,
his attempts were still where they normally are.
I can do the math.
He was not as productive.
7.5 yards, and it was 220 yards per game. So I don't know. So it was.
He was not as productive. I mean, he had 5 touchdowns and 4 picks.
The math on that is 29 attempts per game. Dust, check me 29 times 7.5. I think it's 217.5, which would be exactly that.
What I'm saying, Nick, is I know that they stopped. Diggs had like no receptions for the most part, but he was not as productive, but he was still throwing the football. If you look at his attempts, they still have plenty of attempts.
He's 29, this is what's frustrating.
Yeah, you're frustrating.
There are 2 super talented quarterbacks, undeniably talented, in Lamar and Josh, both of whom might be the 2 of the 5 or 6 best running threat quarterbacks ever. I don't think people look at Josh like that, but I think he is. I think Josh, because
Vic, Cam,
you know what I mean? Right, in there, of course. But very often when the team loses and people are like, what'd they do wrong? The answer is, they leaned on their quarterback throwing a little too much there, and they should have been more conservative. They should have asked Josh to do less. They should have asked Lamar to hand the ball off. And in my opinion, that is a massive blemish on them as overall impeccable football players. And that's fair. No one has ever watched the Bengals or the Texans last year, small sample, I understand, and said, you know where they screwed up? They left it in Burrow or Stroud's hands. That's where they went wrong.
They're different style quarterbacks.
Right.
And when you
the other guys are better.
You can't tell me Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson aren't phenomenal football players.
No, of
That's
course
what you just said.
No.
If you want to say it's an indictment on their passing ability, have at it. Yeah. I'll salute you. Yeah. But to say they're not great football players,
I think
they are phenomenal football players. They're not the best passers in the league.
It's an insane argument that Nick Wright is making here, because how did the Kansas City Chiefs win the Super Bowl this past year? Not because of great offense, not because of amazing Patrick Mahomes being amazing. They took the ball out of Mahomes' hands oftentimes. Patrick Mahomes was only getting like a touchdown or so. He wasn't throwing the ball down the field. Patrick Mahomes has won a lot of Super Bowls with very short yards per pass games, okay? So he wants to use that against Josh Allen when you can use the exact same thing against Patrick Mahomes. Andy Reid was kicking field goals all the livelong day. He wasn't putting up 1,000,000 points against the Bills, against the Dolphins, against the Chiefs. Against the Ravens, Dolphins, and Bills. Like, what are we talking about here? It's so asinine. It's absurd. It makes zero sense. Patrick Mahomes was not unleashed throwing the ball. The way they were winning was by handing the ball up, was by short yardage gain, was by kicking field goals, was by leaning on the defense. And then that's kind of, in a way, what the Bills had to do later in the season, and yet it's seen as a knock on them? If they relied on Patrick Mahomes to just throw the ball 30, 40 times, the Kansas City Chiefs would be losing as well. That's a fact. How do I know it's a fact? Because that's not the game plan that they do with Patrick Mahomes. That's not how Patrick Mahomes won the last 2 Super Bowls. He's thrown less passes. Oh, significantly less passes. Short yardage passes. Kicking field goals. Like, what are we talking about here? It's disingenuous, and it's not an actual logical argument. Look at the data. If you want to look at the stats, look at the stats. They're not asking Patrick Mahomes to throw the ball 40 plus times a game. To push the ball down the field game after game after game. Play after play after play. They are not. Look at the stats. It's clear as day. So it's just a disingenuous argument that he continues to bring. Look, the Bills win when they ask Josh Allen to do less. Yes, because they asked Josh Allen to do so much that it's brutally impossible to be successful. And the same exact thing would be happening with the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes if it wasn't for Andy Reid's brilliance and consistency and the defense to help pick up some of the slack. It's just absurd to me, man. It's absurd to me. Look up the stats. Look up how often Patrick Mahomes has been asked to go win these shootouts and throw the ball 35, 40 times in a Super Bowl. Go look it up. Go look it up. It's not a lot. It's just ridiculous, man. Just ridiculous. It's so disingenuous, and it's just not accurate. It's just not accurate. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you think about this never-ending debate between Josh Allen and I guess now they're through in Lamar Jackson, but Patrick Mahomes, that Josh Allen is just overrated, that when they ask him to do more, they're worse, and when they ask him to do less, they're better? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.